Welcome to CSGuitars, the science of loud. You might remember back in March, I set about repairing a severe neck break on a 2005 Gibson SG. Rebuilding the damaged neck pocket, reattaching the neck, and refinishing with cherry and clear nitrocellulose. I closed out that video by putting the guitar into hibernation for several weeks to allow the nitro to cure before coming back and doing the rest of the work. As of today, this is what the Gibson SG looks like. Quite a transformation. So let's pick up the work where we left off and see how we got to this point. One of my favourite tools in this project have been razor blades. They have so many important uses, but when it comes to levelling out this now cured clear nitrocellulose, they play the role of scraper. Tape is wrapped around the edges so the points don't damage the surrounding finish, and the tape will act as a depth stop. This blade scraper will remove material evenly down to the thickness of the tape. I'm also watching the colour of the material being removed. As long as it remains white, I know I'm only removing clear coat. If that dust ever shows red, then I've gone too far. Once the blade has scraped away the bulk of the material and achieved a reasonably level finish, I can move on to sanding. This is a little sanding block with 400 grit sandpaper attached with double-sided tape. This will work at levelling out the remaining flat areas and begin blending them into the original finish. For the bevels and some of the blending, I'm using a strip sanding technique, which is great for precision sanding in specific areas. A strip of sandpaper is pulled across the surface with a single finger applying light pressure to a point. Great for little spot repairs or areas that need a touch of special attention. Once a level surface has been achieved all over, I sand again with 600 and 800 grit papers, then move on to wet sanding, taking it all the way up to 1500 grit. Moving all the way up to wet sanding will leave a finish without any noticeable scratches, and after polishing will result in a reflective glossy finish. Medium and fine polishing compound were buffed in sequence, and ultimately left the finish a little glossier and more reflective than the surrounding original finish, which has dulled slightly over the years. Despite a slight colour difference, these blend seamlessly with the original finish. Any unevenness that remains will only be revealed by harsh lighting reflections. Refinishing isn't one of my strengths, but I would consider this to be a successful finish repair, as it's good enough to go unnoticed, except under the harshest of scrutiny. While I was performing the refinishing, it occurred to me that I might want to manufacture a couple of removable mahogany plugs, topped in cherry red nitro, that can be inserted into the stop bar post holes when the vibrola is installed. To accommodate for those plugs, the bushings needed to be removed. These bushings were covered in masking tape and finished over in factory, meaning for clean removal I need to cut through the finish and remove that tape. If I don't manage to get all of that tape, then it will pull up the finish with the bushings. I purchased a fancy knob and bushing puller to make these kind of projects a little easier. This makes pulling the bushings straight out of the body extremely easy, but in each case a tiny bit of buried masking tape remained and ripped up a section of wood and finish. Luckily, I've recently had a lot of practice gluing wood back together and touching up nitrocellulose finish, so these little chip outs didn't present much of an issue. I will, however, have to remember to be more careful in cutting free any bushings I wish to remove in the future. A number of new nickel hardware parts were purchased for this guitar. While none of this was strictly necessary, the original parts could have gone back on here just fine, I decided to take this opportunity to create an SG with the looks and features I want. And what I never want on a guitar is chrome hardware, where nickel is an option. That's just personal preference. Chrome is the harder wearing plating option, which always looks brand new, whereas I much prefer the way nickel changes colour over time as it reacts with air, moisture and sweat. I'm looking to age match the new nickel hardware with the well-patinaed tuning machines of this 2005 guitar. This is a 17-year-old instrument with signs of age and use. Brand new nickel parts will just stand out and look incorrect. These parts include a long cover vibrola, which not only looks great on an SG, but the added mass makes the instrument balance well on a strap. Almost like this was the original intention for the design all along. To get this looking less new, I'm using ferric chloride, a metal etchant solution which will very quickly eat away at the metal surface, an accelerated alternative to 17 years of atmospheric contact. I did send the blank cover off to Indra Guitars to have it engraved with some custom artwork. I instructed Richard to have fun and choose a design he felt fitted the concept, the result being a phoenix rising above the flames, which I think is the perfect imagery for a guitar which has undergone a true resurrection. To go with it, I have a new Schaller bridge and a set of Graphtec saddles. These are made from low-friction, PTFE impregnated material which will allow the strings to slide across the saddles without hanging up, vital for strings returning to pitch when using the vibrola. The original Vibrola-equipped SGs had nylon saddles for this purpose, so I'm not breaking any new ground here, simply using a more advanced material which will give me better results. Installing the saddles is the tricky part, however. There is a bit of a technique involved in getting the spring clips in place and the intonation screws to align. In addition to the saddles, I purchased a new nut from Graphtec, made from the same material, to further enhance the guitar's performance. I also have 2 sets of pickup covers, nickel replacements for the chrome humbucker covers, and a set of nickel P90 covers for the P90s I need to wind for this guitar. The intention is to have 2 different pickguards I can swap over to give me either a humbucker or P90 equipped SG. Swapping covers on the humbuckers is easy. The covers are held to the base plate with nothing more than a couple of blobs of solder. Solder is soft enough that a blade can slice through it and the covers can be popped off. The nickel covers needed a little persuasion to stay in place while they were soldered into position. The coils inside are already very well wax potted and there is no room for movement of the cover, so I find little incentive to repot them just for the new covers. However, I might give them a dip in the wax when it comes time to wind those P90s I'm talking about, since I'll have the wax all melted up anyway. With the original pickguard broken in the large dog-related incident that severed the guitar's neck, a replacement is needed. This is a 3-ply rather than the fancier 5-ply of the original, and it also is blindingly white. The original had yellowed a little over time, so to match that look, I'm using a touch of amber stain that will hopefully apply a light colour to the white plastic. This would probably work better with something oil-based rather than the water-based stains I'm using here. While I'm soldering the pickups back to the original electronics, I need to reinstate the ground wire for the bridge. With the new Graphtec saddles not being electrically conductive, the existing ground wire which connects to the bridge post is no longer performing its function. Instead, I need to run a wire through the stop bar post and terminate it to the Vibrola. I love how the Vibrola can just hinge out of the way to give me access to this. Let's recap the work so far. The neck is reattached, all the material surrounding the neck is repaired, and the finish is touched up, levelled and polished. We have new nickel hardware which has been age matched and installed, a replacement pickguard is in place, and the nut and saddles have been replaced with low friction Graphtec parts. This has been set up with the original electronics and humbucking pickups, for now at least, and been strung up with a set of D'Addario 10s. I'm extremely happy to have that Vibrola and its cover in place with that wonderful engraving thanks to Indra Guitars. I haven't yet got around to winding the P90 pickups or replacing the original electronics, so we'll come back with a part 3 to cover all of the work involved in that. For now, I think this looks and plays pretty great. Those Graphtec saddles and nut do a wonderful job of preventing the strings from catching, which makes the vibrato system extremely stable, possibly the most stable I've ever used. It just simply doesn't go out of tune. But of course, the real test of an instrument that looks like this is how it handles playing a little bit of Black Sabbath. With the SG back on its feet, you can expect to see this guitar in many videos going forward, as well as a part 3 to this series where I finally wind the P90s and we can get a comparison between a Humbucker and P90 SG guitar. So stick around and stay subscribed for that. And don't forget to click all the buttons you're supposed to make this video viable to the ever-changing whims of the YouTube algorithm. That's all for now. Keep it loud and stay safe. Looks like it was never ever broken.